the lane. 15-10. Touchdown, Chargers.
What's up, guys? Welcome into a Week 1 edition of Chargers Weekly Money. We've been talking about this season ad nauseum since it ended. It's finally back. What are the emotions for you, my friend?
You know, it's just been a busy week, which is great. I love the work. I love doing this with you every week. I was on with Kay Adams on Up and Adams, her new show over there on FanDuel TV on Tuesday, talking Chargers. Doing Jim Rome later today, talking Chargers. Oh, yeah. You know, I've gotten calls from like all of our opponents, like, hey, can we do a season preview? We're doing all of our opponents, you know, all that stuff that, you know, reminds you, and I say it just because it reminds you the season's here. Like, that's how geeked people get is when when week 1 arrives, my phone just goes crazy. And it's and I love it. I'm not trying to say, oh, everybody wants to talk to me. No, that happens to everybody. It just so happens that I'm the play-by-play voice for the Chargers, and you know, that's what happens. People get freaking geeked, and I'm no different, and I can only imagine what the players are feeling right now because, like you said, I mean, we had done, what have we done? 16 of these, 20 of these, You know, just kind of projecting and wondering, and I know that's still kind of what the theme of this is going to be because we don't know what it's going to look like. Coach Staley mentioned that, but yeah, I mean, we got a specific game to talk about. A specific opponent that will be with us in a couple days at the time of this taping, and that's exciting.
I always love doing this podcast with you, but when it's in season and we're talking games and we actually have concrete stuff to talk about rather than project if Zion Johnson's going to be the 17th overall pick or right. Jameson Williams or whatever. This is where it really counts. And later on, Trent Green, who's on the call with Kevin Harlan, going to join us, pop in here in the next 15 minutes or so. So excited to get Trent's perspective on this big-time matchup. And I tell you, I think that this is the game of the week. I'm not just saying that because this is the Chargers podcast. I mean, we were both there in Las Vegas in perhaps the craziest regular season game in league history, and these two teams going to pick up where they left off. But in Los Angeles, the Chargers have never opened a season at home against the Raiders since they've been the Chargers in 1960. It's the first time this has ever happened, which is crazy to me. And there's so many storylines, and I think somebody asked Coach Staley yesterday, Money, about the revenge factor, and he said this is two different operations, two completely different teams, a new coaching staff over there. So for some of the guys, maybe there's a little revenge on their mind. Maybe they're going to think about that Week 18 game in Las Vegas. But for the most part, this is a completely new operation, and we're going to see, especially this remade defense, for the first time together on the grass Sunday.
Yeah, I just I opened up the card to my right just because I want to make sure, and it's funny you started with that because it's the exact point I'm going to make. Is so many fans and I'm not trying to take a shot at the fans. That's not the point of this. Like, for fans, yes, this is a revenge game. It's you've been, you know, your buddies that are Raider fans have been giving you the business all off season. You've been giving the Raider fans the business because of all the off-season projections of what the Chargers are going to be, and everyone's picking the Raiders to finish 4th in the division or whatever. Like, that does not affect the players at all. Football is hard, man. It's a hard, violent, physical, nasty sport. And the idea of revenge because, I can't believe they did this to us back in Week 18. Now, that has nothing to do with what's going to be out there when they kick it off at 125 on Sunday. And as I'm looking at the card, I'm just looking at the offensive line, you know, of Colton Miller, who's there at left tackle, but then you've got John Simpson, Andre James, Lester Cotton, and Illuminor. It's just that's the game. That is the game.
That's the game.
That's it right there. It is that versus Joey Bosa, Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph Day, Khalil Mack. That's Kyle Van Noy. That is the game right there. You know, that to me is what we're going to be talking about. And I think the flip side of that, because of how that Week 18 ended, Max Crosby versus Storm Norton just wrecking the game, is going to be the other side of it. You know, does Trey hold up at right tackle? Is Trey McKitty on his outside? How much is Gerald Everett playing because of Max Crosby and Chandler Jones? Is Rashawn Slater picking up where he left off as an all-pro? That's the game. That's what we're going to be focused on. Not what happened in Week
1,000%.
18 in January, 8 months ago.
I was thinking about this last night. Like, what are the keys to this game, especially in Week 1 where there's so much unknown? We have no idea how Josh McDaniels is going to come out. But the one thing that stuck with me was Brandon Staley talking about being a dominant team and a physical team. And you're going to have to impose your will on this Raiders offensive line. If you're Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph Day, Morgan Fox and Jerry Tillery, all these guys, you have the more dominant defensive line. And then, frankly, the offensive line, you're going to have to impose your will there. And we know Justin Herbert is going to score. I have very little doubt that that's 100%. Going to happen. But I think that they're going to have to run the football too, Money, and they're going to have to show that they are a physical team running the football. You don't want to take the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands, but late in games, late in the half, when you have to sustain drives, like I want to see Austin and Sony Michel and Josh Kelly, whoever it's going to be, Spiller, who's now full participant in practice this week. I want to see those guys getting 4 yards a pop, chewing clock when you have to. That was the missing element to this. So I 100% agree with you. In the trenches is where this game is going to be won in Week 1.
Yeah, I mentioned, and I'm not trying to plug it, but it's just because it's top of mind. I just did it yesterday, but I do power rankings for FanDuel, and when I was putting it together, I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this 1 through 32? We haven't seen any games. Rosters change every year. Some people are like, well, the defending Super Bowl champs deserve to be at number 1. And I'm like, well, look at the difference that Whitworth made. When he showed up at left tackle, how much that changed everything for Sean McVay when he was able to get Saffold and Whitworth and Havenstein and all those guys. That changed everything for that team. It was nothing before they had that settled. So as I'm looking through, I'm thinking about the Packers last year who lost Bakhtiari and never missed a step. I'm thinking about the Bills and protection that they gave Josh Allen to distribute to Gabe Davis and make him a star and Stephon Diggs. And then I think about the Chiefs and how, between Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, they were able to revamp that entire offensive line that was not good in the early season but came on late. That's so important. And that's why I think so many people are picking the Saints. Everyone's got this sleeper team. Oh, look out for the Saints. Because Tom Brady lost 4/5 of his offensive line. He lost all 3 guys that are in front of him, his center and his 2 guards, and those guys were all pros. So, I don't think that's a coincidence. There's a reason why people are picking the Eagles to win the East because of their offensive line and their defensive line. Why they're picking if they are picking the Bucs, they're looking at that defensive line. That's what this ultimately comes down to. The Bills, the second string of their defensive line would start for probably 20 NFL teams on a defensive line. That's how deep they are up front. And I think that's the other thing with the Chargers is the emergence of Chris Rumph, the ability to put Van Noy as a backup edge rusher, and have Tranquil man the middle. If you have to get Tillery out there on an edge or Kenneth Murray on an edge, when you can bring waves of pressure, it changes everything. And I think that's the one thing that was overlooked with the Bengals and their magical run last year to the Super Bowl was how good that defensive front played.
And then in the back end, secondary, as we tape this, Coach Staley mentioned that J.C. Jackson is out of his boot. He's running. He's day-to-day. He's a game-time decision. So as we get closer, I'm sure we'll know more about JC and his status. But if he doesn't go, you still have Michael Davis and Asante Samuel Jr. You bring in Bryce Callahan. Obviously, we're going to see the debut of Derwin James wearing that number 3 next to Nasir Adderley. They're going to have a tall task, though. Davante Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, that's about as good as it gets in terms of offensive weapons and route running. And I know you could speak to this because you've talked about the fact that Derek Carr gets, sometimes he holds on to the ball too long. He's going to have to get the ball out of his hands very quickly with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa breathing down his neck on Sunday.
Yeah, look, Derek does not want to hold the ball. You know that. He doesn't like it. He finally came around. John Gruden was like, hey, man, you got to hold the ball. We got to get some downfield shots, open this thing up. But he doesn't like to do it. And it was interesting, as you go through social media. I think it was Pro Football Focus, their fantasy feed put it up. and it had best receiver corner matchups. And Davante Adams was on there. And they're projecting probably that J.C. Jackson's going to be out, and you're going to have either Mikey Davis or Asante Samuel on Davante. And, yeah, okay, that's advantage Davante. Problem with that is, it goes back to what we talked about. You got to have time to throw the football. Like, you can't. And that's where I think people get frustrated with fantasy players and people that try to project what's going to happen in a football game from a fantasy standpoint. It's like, okay, yeah, on paper, if JC doesn't go, it does look like an advantage for Davante Adams. But I just gave you that offensive line of the Raiders. If they're not slowing down Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. And an average secondary becomes an elite secondary because there's no separation. You don't have time to have development in your routes. So that's where it's going to come into play. Now, having said that, this is as good of a three-man, receiving crew that we're going to see all season. I don't know if there's anyone better out there than Davante Adams, who might be the best all-around receiver in the game, Darren Waller, who's an absolute load to contend with and is probably going to draw Derwin James for the entirety of the contest, and Hunter Renfrow, who's as slippery as it gets. I mean, look, no one runs routes like Keenan Allen, or D-Hop or Davante, but, man, Hunter Renfrow is slippery, and Bryce Callahan's going to have his hands full.
It almost kind of plays into, I guess, Carr's hands with what the game plan should be, right? Get the ball out of your hand as quickly as possible. Yeah. I may have misspoke. He gets the ball out of his hands very quickly. And this may be the game where he's going to have to do that often with Renfrow and Waller and Adams. And you don't want to give him those extra few seconds down the field with Davante Adams. He spoke yesterday about the fact that, hey, the first time that me and Davante connect as Raiders, they're going to look at this connection and be like, oh, wow, look at this new connection. He's like, we've been doing it for 13 years. So there is chemistry there between Carr and Adams, and I think that's just another wrinkle to this game. Really, the route running ability of both Adams and Keenan. Yeah. And then you look at tonight with Kupp and Stephon Diggs. It's like a route running clinic at SoFi Stadium this week.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the thing that, if I were to say, okay, what concerns you about this game? I think back to 2018 and the Patriots game and the Patriots playoff contest when, you got Melvin and you got Derwin and you got Joey and you just wrecked the Ravens. You wrecked them. Lamar Jackson didn't have a chance. Fumbled the ball over the place. They were in the backfield. Chenna had a monster game. And they just couldn't. They got no time. He had no time to pass. Then all of a sudden, you get to New England, they win the coin toss, and they take the ball. And you're like, what the heck? And it's just ball was out. Pass rush didn't matter. It's like, and you could just see the frustration on Joey's face. Like, dude, the ball is gone. It's snap, ball's gone. And I think that's the Josh McDaniels. I think if you're worried about something, as a Charger fan, if you're concerned, that to me is I think about that blueprint of how they played Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram in that playoff game and how quickly that ball was out. Now I feel like a fool doing analysis with Trent Green on the screen because who the heck am I to talk about what the game plan is going to be from Coach McDaniels when he's with us?
Hey, believe me, I'm listening. You are. Right on point. There's a lot to dive into when trying to prepare for this game.
Trent Green joining us now. He'll be on the call with Kevin Harlan this Sunday. Trent, it's a privilege to have you on here, man. Thank you so much for taking some time. We were saying this at the beginning. I think you and Kevin have the best game of the week, no doubt.
Well, we're biased, but yes, we agree with you on that one. We were keeping our fingers crossed that this was a game. You start to see how it lays out, and you kind of haven't been in it long enough. You kind of see who's going to go where, and how the different crews will. And so it's kind of funny because we all take our guesses, and this is the one that we guessed we would get, and we're very happy to have this game.
I was just I don't know how much you caught of it on the back end, Trent, but I brought up what Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick drew up in that 2018 playoff game. The Chargers were coming off that big win against the Ravens. They made a mess of the backfield, a bunch of sacks, some strip sacks and fumbles, and then they get to New England, and the ball is out so fast, and you could just see the frustration from from Joey and Melvin Ingram that it wasn't going the same way as it was in Baltimore. Can you share with us and the people watching and listening, like, how fast is fast? How quick does that ball have to be out if the Raiders have O-line issues and Khalil Mack and Joey are really getting after it?
Well, that's the thing. I think there's a stat when Brady was in New England, his success and completion percentage and what he was able to do when he got the ball out in under 2 seconds, his success and completion percentage when he got the ball out between 2 and 2.5 seconds, and then the drastic drop off it was once it was over 2.5 seconds. So you're right on point. That was the way it was designed. He was trying to get quick throws. It wasn't the the era of Randy Moss and him throwing for 5,000 yards and throwing the ball downfield. It was all about quick release, getting to the underneath throws, and that's one way to look at it. But then you also look at the fact that Josh McDaniels and the Raiders went out and got Davante Adams. So if you're going to bring in Davante Adams, you're not going to just throw him 5 and 10 yard throws. You're going to take those opportunities to take some shots. But I do think there is a blueprint there. When you have edge rushers like the Chargers do, you better get that ball out quick because they're going to create some havoc.
Trent, you flip it to the Chargers offense and Justin Herbert and his development over the first 2 years and just all the records he's set. And it's year 2 for him in this Joe Lombardi offense. I don't know if you could just speak to what you've seen out of Justin and how he progressed in this offense this past year and what to expect maybe in 2022.
Well, I think there were big jumps for him from year 1 to year 2. First off, the numbers he's put up over the first 2 seasons are ridiculous. And I thought highly of him coming out of college. What he was able to do his rookie year really impressed me quite a bit. Changing offensive coordinators, changing staffs, offenses, those kinds of things. That always worries you with a young quarterback. And I thought he handled it very well. I thought he played better as the season progressed, as he got more and more comfortable in what Lombardi was trying to get done. And I expect him to just keep going. I think that he's got a good grasp on things. He's obviously surrounded with a bunch of talent in terms of his weapons, and he's not afraid to stand in there. I went back and I watched a few games from last season just to kind of get ready for this game. I forget, and I think a lot of people forget how mobile he is. Because he's such a big guy, he has such a big arm. I was laughing at this one play. He goes to roll out. He's getting pressure. He literally takes his left hand while he's sitting there holding the ball. He takes his left hand, grabs onto the defender that's chasing him. He throws him by, and then he throws the ball. It's like not only is he big and strong, but then when he needs to take off and run, he can. So his development, what he's been able to do the first 2 years, I do think it's just going to continue to grow. And you don't want to put too much pressure on the guy, but I know you guys have talked to him. I know you've been around him. He doesn't seem like the moment's too big. And I thought that was the first impression I got from him as a rookie when we had a chance to talk to him. He just was like, this is what I do. This is, what I'm focused on doing. And, I just think he handles it all really well. And I expect him to have a long and successful career.
Trent, share the difference between size versus speed in receivers. I'm not saying like pick which one's better and stuff, but you just you look at the Chargers receiving core and, they need to get a speed guy. But they would push back and say, no, Mike's a vertical threat, and when that ball's in the air, corners have no chance against him. The Kansas City Chiefs remade their receiving core, and it looked like they prioritized size over speed. What are the benefits for each? And when you look at the receiving core of the Chargers, how does that, what kind of impression do you get from what they have for targets from Justin and the way he likes to distribute the ball?
Well, I just think a lot of it, you mentioned Mike and obviously the way he's able to stretch the field. Keenan has been phenomenal his entire career. The number he's been able to put up, what he does on third down, what he does in the red zone. I was really impressed with Palmer as the season progressed a year ago. So I'm looking for him to make a jump. That would be great for Herbert. I think Austin Eckler staying healthy is a big factor. You look at what he did last year. Over 1,500 yards and the 20 touchdowns, which I'm sure you guys have talked about because it's phenomenal what he was able to do when staying healthy. So I think he's got plenty of weapons around him. I don't think you necessarily need that, over-the-top big threat guy, which they do have in Mike Williams. So speed is hard to find. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs make an adjustment without Tyreek Hill. They've got a couple of good guys that they brought in Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but they're going to change up their offense, And if you look at this whole division, what the Chargers have done, what the Raiders have done, what the Broncos have done, trying to chase the Chiefs and get to where they've been and what Andy and Patrick have been able to do over the last few years, I think the Chargers are right on pace with that. And that's why you go out and you make the acquisitions and do what you do on the defensive side of the ball if you're, Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco. So, to answer your question, speed versus, route running and those kinds of things, I think it's always nice to have a fast guy, but you need guys that can get open. And that makes the job a lot easier for the quarterback.
Trent, it's always hard to get a read on week one anyway. And then you add in Josh McDaniels and kind of the unknown there. What's it like for you preparing for a week one game, both as a player and as a broadcaster? Because I feel like week one is such a different Sunday than really any other during the regular season.
Well, it definitely is. And I not to crush the spirit of fans out there everywhere, but I don't watch a lot of the preseason. I don't, because I know that's not, it's really an evaluation period for young players. Coaches are trying to put the young guys, keep it simple for them so that they can play fast. They want to evaluate football players, not guys that are out there thinking and running slow. So I don't put a lot of merit into the preseason. I think preparing for this game, you've got to go back and look at what Josh McDaniels did when he had, Mac Jones, and then he had Tom Brady, but then he had Tom Brady with certain receivers, and then he had Tom Brady with other receivers. I mean, I think they've adjusted that offense based on the personnel that he had in New England, and you look at, all the weapons, that now Derek Carr has, and what they're doing with Waller, and obviously Davante Adams, and Hunter Renfrow put up a phenomenal year a year ago, and so you look at those things, and it's like, okay, how's San Diego going to prepare for what Josh McDaniels is going to do? What do you go back and study? Well, for me, I kind of look at all those different phases. How did he handle, the different quarterbacks, the different systems, and then what receivers and people were surrounding him? So it does make it a lot harder. But as you can tell from my voice and the speed with which I'm talking, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this matchup.
Offensive line is so important. We saw the difference in what Justin was able to do last year when the left side just held up, and then you saw the exploitation of that right tackle in Week 18 with Max Crosby just having a heck of a day. With what they have now, and it's going to be Trey Pipkins, and now Storm's a swing tackle, which I would assume is nice to have, someone that's got that kind of experience that can be a swing. But how do you, when you're going into a game, Trent, what are you looking at with Trey at the right tackle and kind of the rest of that line and trying to slow down Chandler Jones and Max Crosby? What's the most effective way to attack that pass rush?
Well, I think, when I go back to my old school mentality is if you have those big, up the field pass rusher guys, what we would generally try and do is get physical with them, which means running downhill, right? You just want to get physical with them, wear them out early, get the run game going, get those guys to slow down a little bit, which can get the play action pass going, which once again slows them down a little bit. Those are kind of things. I don't know if that's necessarily, what they want to do. It's nice to have, I'm kind of impartial to Slater. He played at Northwestern with my older son. So I watched him all through college. I'm a big fan of his. I think this is a very big year for Pipkins. You mentioned the fact that, he'll be on the right side. I think that, it's a huge year for him, and what a great challenge coming out in week one. And it's going to be a challenge throughout the whole season. As we know, the AFC West is stacked, but the AFC West schedule is stacked for every single team in the division in terms of strength of schedule and who they have to play. So from an offensive line standpoint, to get back to your original question, I think what I always went into it and looked at it was, okay, can we run the football? Can we get physical with them? Can we slow them down and get the play action pass? And then the other thing is, from a passing game standpoint, move that landmark, move the quarterback around, get the ball out of his hands quick. You got to sprinkle in some play action. You got to move them around. You don't want them to just stand back there and be a target. And I've always said a good play caller can help the quarterback out, but the good play caller can really help his offensive line out and how he's able to do that and protect them if they think there are some deficiencies somewhere along the front. But, that's what, you look at this matchup and what the Raiders have done. Both these teams have really changed quite a bit defensively. They weren't happy with where they were defensively. And I want to say each team is going to have at least 5 new starters. I know the Chargers aren't going to have, or it doesn't look like J.C. Jackson's going to play, so that would be the 5th new starter for them. But both teams are trying to change it up, which once again makes it a little more difficult to prepare for them, not knowing what exactly they have confidence in doing.
Such a big game for both teams in Week 1, Trent. And then, if I could fast forward just 4 days later, they're going to Arrowhead for the Chiefs home opener, Thursday Night Football. This division, we've talked so much about it this offseason. From someone who has direct knowledge with the Chiefs, and you're there, you see the Raiders, you see what the Broncos have done, and you see what the Chargers have done. How would you sum up what this division may look like this upcoming season?
It's interesting to see what different predictions are around the country, and there are several people predicting 3 teams from this division to make the playoffs. And I wouldn't be shocked. I think 3 of the better teams, if not 4 of the better teams in the NFL are in this division. The hard part's going to be just the schedule and the fact that the teams are beating each other up.
Yeah.
I mean, they're playing each other twice, and it's that takes its toll. So who's going to be the healthiest down the stretch? The schedule is, like I said, we've talked about it, it's tough for every team in the division. So, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a reason there's so much attention placed on the NFC, or so much attention placed on the AFC, and so much attention placed on the AFC West, just because of all the shaking up that's going on this offseason.
Last thing from me, Trent, and we certainly appreciate the time. Game 1 coming up on Sunday. You'll be on the call with Kevin Harlan. Would love to know, because I'm sure it's going to come up in the broadcast, and obviously we're partial and we're biased because we work with the Chargers, but I love the 4th down stuff, man. I could feel it when he would kick long field goals in some of those games. Against the Vikings comes to mind, the Texans comes to mind. You just felt kind of air let out of the balloon a little bit of this team. It felt like the team really galvanized and identified with that aggressive mentality of Brandon Staley. As someone who played and knows what that juice feels like when you get that green light from your coach, kind of walk us through your thoughts of how Coach Staley approached last year with 4th downs, and sort of, your thoughts of how he might adjust this year now that he's got a better defense and a better special teams unit.
Well, better defense, better special teams means he's going to be even more aggressive, don't you think? I mean, right? which may make it a little scary for opponents, but I'm all in on what he was doing. I like the analytics part of it. I think you do also have to have a feel part of it and understand it. I really enjoyed the conversation that we had with him last year. I'm looking forward to the conversation I'm going to have with him this year prior to the game. But, he was very calm in explaining what it was he was trying to get done, and his approach and how he studies the numbers and the percentages. And, you just go down the line. And I know a lot was made about the call last year. But the defense came on the field, held him to a field goal. And if you look at the 4th down conversions that the Chargers had in that game, what they were able to do to keep drives alive. I mean, all the numbers point in his favor. It's just everybody wants to talk about that one call, and I'm a fan of it as a quarterback, as an offensive guy. I'm all in for going on, never punting, as a head coach. I don't know if I would have that same mentality, but as a quarterback and as a competitor, going back to what you stated in your question, it does fire the guys up. It fires the offensive guys up. You go into the mindset and you hear a coach talk about it, you're like, yeah, we're really not going to do that. Then all of a sudden he does it. And you're like, man, this guy believes in us and believes in what we can do. And some people are like, well, what does the defense think? Well, that's got to fire the defense up too, because the coach has confidence in you, stopping him if something would happen. So I do think he's going to stick with what he's done. He may even be more aggressive based on, the changes on defense, but I'm sure his philosophy is going to be his philosophy.
Trent, you're the best. We can't wait to see you on Sunday. And Money, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this to Trent. It was 1998. All right, I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. I was in Ashburn. I was a junior in high school. Jay Brunetti, the equipment manager, took me up to the Ashburn Pavilion to play pickup ball. You were playing, and you were balling. So I played pickup basketball with you in 1998. I figured 24 years later, I would give you your props. You were a beast on the court, Trent.
Jay Bird's the best.
Yeah.
He's now with the 49ers.
Yeah.
So he was after Washington, went to Houston, and then now with the 49ers. He's unbelievable equipment manager. And you're right. Back in the, I guess the old days, right? Everybody hung out. Most of the guys lived where the team was. Most of the guys went to the complex. When the season ended, it wasn't like everybody took off. It was, I would go up to the complex, play racquetball, play basketball. It was whatever guys were around. We would just, try and get in workouts, whatever we could do in the off season. So how about that? I tell people all the time, I was a basketball junkie way before I was a football junkie. I always basketball was my thing. I didn't play football until 7th grade. I didn't start playing quarterback until 8th grade. And my sophomore year of high school, things kind of went all right for me football wise. And next thing you know, I'm like, wait, somebody's going to pay for my school by playing football?
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? Football is my favorite sport. So, but I was always a basketball junkie and loved it. So, I'm glad you have that good memory, and always remember how good of a basketball player I was. I appreciate that.
I was a diehard, man. So I'm like, listen, I'm playing pickup ball with Trent Green and Ashburn right now. Like that was a highlight for me. So I appreciate that.
That's awesome. Hey, you guys have a good one. I'm sure we'll talk again throughout the season.
For sure. We appreciate it, Trent. Have a great call.
We appreciate you,
All
man.
right, thank you.
Trent Green, CBS. We'll see him Sunday. He'll be calling the game. Matt Money Smith.
Yeah, I got
calling the game on radio.
The freaking city palm tree patrol decided to show up outside my window right in the middle of that. So I don't know can you hear the mowers and the chainsaws and all of that?
I didn't hear it.
Okay, good.
I think we're good.
All right.
I can hear a little. Now I can hear a little bit.
Let me. You keep talking. You talk Chargers, Chris. I'm going to shut these windows so we can get rid of the chainsaws and the freaking wood chippers.
You know what, buddy? I love getting Trent's perspective, not only as a broadcaster but as a quarterback. And I found it interesting that he said that maybe Coach Staley will go for it even more with the better special teams and defense. I would think the opposite, but hey, you never know.
That and I think that's I'm glad he made the point too, because so many people say, "Oh, well, it's an insult it's a slap in the face to the defense." No, it's not. It's actually I believe in you to both sides of the ball. I believe the offense is going to convert, and I'm not worried because if they don't, I've got a defense that I believe is going to hold them to at worst 3 or 3 and out, and they'll punt and they'll flip the field and we'll get the ball back and get after it. Look, it's not a topic you can avoid. It's going to be talked about by every single, and it's interesting. Like I remember, I can't remember if it was when I was working with the Lakers or who it was with, but I would have fans like get after me when teams would come to town we'd interview someone, and it was an event that had happened a little while ago, and we would ask them about it, and they're like, that's old news. It's like, well, it's not old news for you though. Like it hasn't been discussed with the Los Angeles Lakers in relation to what this team did on X day. And I think that's what people have to remember. If you're tired of hearing people ask Brandon Staley about the fourth down stuff, well, remember, every town he goes to, that's the headline. When we show up in Kansas City, it's here comes the fourth down team. And the Kansas City beat writers are going to ask him about it in the press conference and ask the players about it. And that's just how it is. And I don't think he doesn't run from it. It's part of this team's identity. It's an important part of this team's identity. I think it was Coach Saleh got credit for it, but I mean, it's a phrase that I've heard around football forever: all gas, no brakes. And I think that's a winning mentality. The players are too good. Offenses are too good. Rules are skewed in their favor way too much to not have an all gas, no brakes mentality on that side of the ball. And I'm stoked that we got a coach that believes in it.
It won the game in Kansas City in Week 3
exactly
last
right.
year.
Won the game against the Browns.
Won the game against the Browns. They would, if they didn't convert that fourth down, they would have gone down 17, I think, or something.
And I think it's interesting that Trent brought it up that way, that they might go for it more. I would push back and say no, probably less, just because I would think less too. You can flip the field with a really good punter and J.K. Scott and better special teams and coverage and fair catches and things like that, and then get a 3 and out, and just get right back after it with your offense. So I think that plays into it. We've talked about that. Why do you get a great punter? Because you have a great defense and you want to pin a team back and you want to flip the field. And so to me, that's now at the same time, I think, when you're at the plus 38 and you're looking at a 48-yard field goal or something, I think they'll go for it. I think in those situations you go for it on the plus side of the field. I think that when you're looking at a field goal of 50 plus and you got a 4th and short and you feel good about the way your offense is playing, I still think that's all gas. I don't think that's going to change at all with the advantage he feels he has, when Justin Herbert's taking snaps under center or in shotgun.
And I don't think we should discount the fact that this defense was constructed to take the ball away and score, too.
Right.
I mean, Joey Bosa led the NFL in strip sacks last year. He's got Khalil Mack on the other side,
right.
who's that's his specialty. J.C. Jackson, more interceptions than anybody the last 2 or 3 years. Derwin James can take the ball away. We know Nas can take the ball away. I'm hoping that he puts it together this year.
And don't forget about Van Noy. You look at Van Noy's stat lines every year. There's always a couple sacks, a couple forced fumbles. Every now and then there's an interception. Like, that's someone that's got a nose for the ball as well. And I'm expecting, I think Drew is going to have a year too. I think you're going to see a couple turnovers from Drew Tranquill. He's just got such a nose for the ball in his run fits. Those are just that's got forced fumble written all over it. When you think you see a hole and then all of a sudden, bam, it's just filled and you get a lick, right away. That's how you pop a ball out. And so I think you're going to see that as well. Look, I don't think there's any question that went into what they wanted to do this offseason. You got to get the ball more. You have got to create more turnovers.
So I think we're both on the same page in terms of keys of the game. I think dominate the lines, both offensively and defensively. I'd add special teams. We want to see an improved special teams unit from last year. I think you take out the Cowboys game. It was a preseason, but that could be a deciding factor, frankly, in this division. Field position, making your field goals, punt coverage, all those things that I think they address this offseason. We just got to see it now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think that's the one thing that's overlooked in the Raider game from Week 18 is, Dustin Hopkins missed a 51-yard field goal, at the start of the second half. Like, that's not – everyone's like, oh, you went for it, and they got that field goal when you went for it on 4th and 2. And I'm not trying to rehash and debate the play call there, when you're inside your own 30 and you're going for it on 4th down and they get 3 points out of it. But let's not forget – missed field goal. So there's your difference in 3 points as well, and that game. So, I think there's so many moving parts. Again, it's not basketball. It's not baseball. It's football. And there are so many things that happen on each individual play and throughout the course of a game that dictate, whether you win or you lose. And I thought Justin put it best, and it actually just kind of make it full circle, Chris, what you started with. It's not just a 2-minute drill. It's a 4-minute drill. And, you've got to have a 4-minute drill in this league to keep offenses off the field because they're just, especially in this division, man, I will not discount the Raiders as much as the fans listen and might want us to. That is a nasty offense. The offensive line I'm not crazy about, and I think it's going to have some issues, and that's where the Chargers are going to get their advantage. But, boy, trying to slow down those three, Davante, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow is going to be tough. And so I think it's important to keep them off the field. And it's why they went out and got Sony Michel. And of all the positions and players and waivers and players that were made available after cut-down day, it was a running back that they went out and got. And I think that should be a signal to people that, they need and they want that 4-minute drill to work better. Last year, they could only run left. They couldn't run right. I'm sure they're going to try to get that going this year with the drafting of Zion and hopefully with Trey in another year as a blocking tight end and Gerald Everett, who kind of does both. He's not just a dude that's going to line up out wide and catch passes as a tight end. So, I think that's a huge, huge priority for this team if they're going to, win this division and make a run in the playoffs.
I feel pretty good about this running backs room this year. Everybody's healthy. You bring in Sony Michel. We liked what we saw out of Joshua Kelly, and I think we all have high hopes for Isaiah Spiller. So I think there's a nice complementary of backs behind Austin this year.
They need it. Look, he cannot continue to take the pounding. He's too stubborn. He won't go down on first contact because he's too good because he gets hit and he'll get you another, I've never seen a running back turn more, say, like the Barry Sanders. But you know what I'm saying? Like there's a 2-yard loss staring Austin in the face, and he just bounces off a contact and turns it into a 3-yard gain. Like he's just so good that way. But you can't keep asking him to do it. And I think that's why, getting Sony was so important to this team and making sure, and I thought Tom put it best. He joined Petros and me earlier this week, or was it earlier this week? Yeah, I think it might have been. Anyway, yeah, it was earlier this week. And he said, the thing with the running back room is you can't wait until it's too late. It's a position of attrition. So when you're trying to fill it in the middle of the season, that ain't easy. But when you now have Larry on the practice squad and you've got 3, 4, you have 4 backs you feel really good about, now you feel better about that room and what you got going into a season.
Yeah, and just the continuity of the offensive line too. Just add those two factors. I think we are going to see a physical running team at some points throughout this season.
Big year for Trey.
I would, big year for Trey for sure. But I hope it starts Sunday. And listen, I want to see Justin throw it around the yard as much as anybody in the stands. But if I see Sony Michel break off a 7-yard run and it helps to sustain a 8.5-minute drive, that's going to win ball games, man. And that's going to keep Justin fresh too. And it's going to add another dimension to this offense that maybe was lacking a little bit at times last year.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember too is, look, Austin Eckler had 20 touchdowns. He didn't have 20 rushing touchdowns.
Exactly.
The extension and those smoke routes and screens. We saw some screens set up in the preseason. Those are runs, essentially. Some of those tunnel screens to Keenan and stuff, those are essentially extended runs. So there's ways to keep the clock churning, even though you're throwing the ball. And I think that's the one thing is you can't cheat your identity. This was a top 5 offense last year because Austin's better at throwing the ball around than almost every single quarterback in the league. He's in the conversation as the best quarterback, the best thrower. He's one of the most accurate passers. There was a thing that went up. Who put it up? Darn, I wish I could give the person credit because it was fascinating to see. I don't know if you saw it. Maybe you can help me out. But they were talking about progressions and how many times Justin got to his 5th option. And it was more than...
I saw that, and it's escaping me too.
I want to give them credit because it was really cool to see. And it was more than any quarterback in the league. And they were talking about, everybody talked. And look, Trent came on and he talked about, man, this guy's so big and he's athletic. And we see that and everything. And this person was like, what really separates him is look at this. This guy's in the red zone and he makes it through 5 progressions in under 2 seconds. And throws
was it a
that
Ringer
touchdown.
article?
What's that?
Was it a ring? Was it from the Ringer?
Like I said, I wish I could give it credit. I don't know, but man, was it great. It might have been. It might have been a big Ringer article, and it had those little, it showed the progressions that he was working through and how quickly he processes. And the way it was described is Joe Lombardi has a quarterback that processes as quickly as Drew Brees with the physical gifts that Justin Herbert possesses, and it is lethal when you think about, what Drew's career looked like, with not as big of an arm, by all quarterback standards, smaller stature quarterback, and now you've got a guy that's 6'6", 230 plus with that processor. Holy hell, look out! And I think you might be right. I think it was a Ringer.
I think it was Stephen Ruiz wrote this piece for the Ringer.
There you go. So look that up because it's really cool to see the video that he pulls and how Justin is working through progressions. And when you can do that, someone's going to be open. When you're able to process that quickly, work your progressions for 5 options in under 2.5 seconds, as Trent mentioned earlier, the numbers for Tom Brady, under 2, under 2.5, and then the difference in the fall-offs success-wise after over 2.5. You just, play to your strengths.
So in this piece, I don't know if you remember Shane Day.
It was Shane, who talked about his favorite throw.
His favorite throw, and it was a 4-yard touchdown on the opening drive of the Bengals game, Week 13. Right. A 4-yard throw, and he kind of went through why that was his best throw of the year. It wasn't the Giants game. It wasn't all these crazy bombs that he's throughout the course of the season. It was the Bengals, a 4-yard touchdown. So, that was a great read. I retweeted that last week. So
be sure to check that out. There's a great
Stephen Ruiz.
There was a cool piece in there, too, that Shane was talking about. Shane Day, the quarterback's coach of the Chargers, was everybody thought the touchdown to Mike Williams against the Steelers after they had just taken the lead, and then it was just a one-play drive, 75 yards touchdown. was a busted coverage. He's like, that was not a busted coverage. That was Justin Herbert's big brain, his pre-med degree brain that he's got working. And he's like, it was something that we talked about maybe 2 days before, and he saw it immediately. He saw the safety cheat. He knew exactly where to put his eyes and put the fake. And the second that safety bit, that ball was out and Mike was gone. And, man, when you have that at quarterback, it changes everything. And so it's going to be fun. I mean, it is going to be a fun 5 days starting on Sunday, culminating Thursday night with the first ever Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football game and a Mahomes-Herbert showdown. It is going to be freaking awesome.
I cannot wait, man. I cannot wait for Sunday and then to turn around, get to Kansas City. We'll know so much about how the season's going to start a week from Thursday night.
We got to figure out how to do this. Like, do we do it's kind of weird. Do we do a Thursday post pregame?
I was talking to Brian about it. Why don't we workshop it right now? Do you want to do it Thursday morning from the lobby of the Kansas City?
We can do that. Or, I mean, I almost wonder.
Maybe get like DJ or Haley or Francisco, whoever's around, pop in with us.
Might be able to do that.
Adrian?
Might be able to do that. Yeah, I think that probably makes sense. We do it Thursday from Kansas City. I got to see, though. I may be selfishly. We got to figure out a time because it could be Thursday afternoon as we're workshopping this on the air. I'm hopeful as we can recommend things outside of football because we're not just freaking meatheads that got big pigskin for brains. But the World War I Museum is in Kansas City, and Dan Carlin, who is one of my favorite historians and has an incredible podcast I can't recommend enough called Hardcore History. He has got this not interactive, it's an immersive experience where you put on VR goggles and they take you to Verdun, and it's just supposed to be crazy. Like, really.
So you're doing that Thursday.
I'm trying to. I'm a little nervous that it's pulling up stakes and leaving town because there's no tickets for that date that we're there, and I'm like, okay, are they just not on sale yet, or is it actually closed? If it's closed, I'm going to be heartbroken. And this has probably been, I've been discussing this too long already, but Hardcore History, Dan Carlin, he's a freaking genius. You will absolutely love it. Wrath of the Khans is one of the greatest bits of audio I've ever listened to in my entire life about the emergence of Genghis Khan, or as he calls him, because he says it is the correct pronunciation, Genghis Khan, which I never knew, but hey, I'm not going to say it because I'm not a history guy. He is. But check that out. And yes, we will do it Thursday from Kansas City. Time pending.
If we got to do it early, we'll do it early,
Or remember, it's Thursday Night Football. Could be late.
We give everybody time to either watch it live or, listen to it in your car on your way into work, or going to SoFi, or coming home to watch it on Amazon Prime. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Money, anything else to add for Sunday, bro?
Wear your powder blues, man. I want to see a nice crowd in SoFi. We know, look, there's no getting away from how big, the Raider Nation is, and how many times they have shown up, be it in San Diego or in Los Angeles, and what the stadium looks like when Chargers Raiders tangle. So it looked good last year, man. It was a nice 50-50 split last year. I'd like to see that again this year. A lot of powder blues out, a lot of excitement about this team, and let's get that juice in that stadium and get after it.
Let's go. Can't wait to hear you on the call on Sunday, my friend, and can't wait to see everybody at SoFi Stadium, man. We are jacked for this 2022 season. For Money, I'm Chris. This has been Chargers Weekly.